Actually two articles um, about rethinking the way that we do school now. And I'm sorry, I noticed when I looked back that I gave the title of only one of the articles, Rethinking School, but I did want you to read both of those articles so that you would read pages 11 through 16 of our required text. But the first one looking at rethinking school, and then the second one looking at are our United States students ready to compete. So if you didn't read both of those articles, just take a second to look through them. It shares some very interesting data about how students in the United States have done on some different assessments, primarily looking at the NAEP assessment, and just kind of seeing how we did. And it's very interesting to look at this data, and also interesting to look at international data to see how are our schools stacking up. And actually, the next article in our book talks about the need for us to take action and maybe do things just a little bit differently. And so I'm going to show you here right quick. This next information here shows us mathematics achievement on yet another test. This is the TIMSS test. It's given to students across the world. And you can see here in the blue box there, it has the TIMSS, the average score. So find the average, and then also take a second and find where the United States stands. So you can see that we are above average. But I want you also to look at the countries that scored higher than we did, the countries that did better than us. And you can see there are quite a few countries that I consider to be, large nations that did quite a bit better than we did. But what amazes me when I look at this data is, look over at the right of this slide. It says if you look at the information that was given on this test, the United States teachers had covered well over the majority of the topics that were assessed in 4th grade. It says the United States teachers omitted only 17% of the stuff that was covered on the test. Okay? So then when we look at the 11 countries that did better than us, on average, they omitted 40% of what was on the test. So when I look at that, I see these other countries, they only covered 60% of the material that was on the test. Yet the United States covered 77%. So we covered more of the material that was on the test, but yet we didn't do as well as these other countries. And if you look at the highest scoring country, the Hong Kong, they omitted 48% in their instruction. So that means they only taught 52% of the material that was on the test. So we might ask, how did they do better than we did? And I think it's because of the ways they teach in these other countries. That they teach students how to think. They teach students to make connections. And so with that, when we look at the instruction that's happening in our classrooms in the United States, we need to ask, what do we need to do differently? And I think in response to a lot of this international data that we see that we need to change the way we do things here in the United States. And as a result of that, we have the Common Core standards. These are new standards that have been implemented in schools across the United States over the past few years. And so this week you're going to learn a little bit more about those Common Core standards. They've actually been adopted by, I think, 46 states in the country. So pretty much most of the states in the United States are now teaching from these standards. So I do want you to spend a little bit of time and learn and research a little bit more about these new Common Core state standards.